I believe that your creative energy is the unique expression of your soul. It's like your soul's fingerprint.
This is The Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What's up, Deep Divers? Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of the Deep Dive podcast. Today is a musing. I've never noticed that. A musing. I can't believe I've never noticed that before. Yeah, well, today is a deep dive musing, which means we're just going into what's most alive for me, what's going on in my head, what I'm learning through life. And today is a huge day. It's a huge day for me because tomorrow my album comes out. December 3rd, my album Permission is being released out into the world, and I can't even begin to describe how much this album means to me and what it took to create it. And so that's what this podcast is going to be about. I want to share with you the story of its creation, and not just the story of its creation, but also the reason why I think it can shift the planet. And that is valuable because you can do it too. You can do it too. And if you want to up-level the amount of impact that you are creating and the ways in which you can reach people, I really encourage you to listen all the way through this, because I put a lot of thought into how to do that most effectively. And it led to this album. And for those of you who are interested now or at a later point, adamroa.com, that website is where you're going to be able to buy the album. And yeah, let's dive into this. Because when I received the idea to turn my poetry into a music album, I wrote it on a whiteboard and it just lived there. And I told my buddy about it, who's a music producer down in Encinitas, California. His name is Angus Wilson. And I just mentioned it to him. I said, hey, I'm really interested in potentially working together and creating an album together. And he said, yeah, awesome, dope. Like I'd be really interested. And then months went by and I didn't even think about it. And after several months, he came over to my house and he said, you know what, I can't stop thinking about this album idea that we mentioned months ago. Let's do it. And I found out how much it would cost. And I asked people that I trusted, friends of mine, what do you think about doing an album that is, 5-figure investment? And the answer was the same. That's a terrible business decision. You're not a musician. No one thinks of you as a musician. You don't go on tour. How are you ever going to sell enough copies of the album to make your money back? Don't do that. Spend your money creating video content and, maybe making Facebook ads, and just do more of what you're doing. And I listened to that for a while, for a few weeks, and thought, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense logically, but I couldn't get this idea out of my head. And then I went into an ayahuasca ceremony, and in that ceremony, I was told, basically, to make the album and to stop trying to understand the reasons why and trying to make sense of everything logically, and to trust that feeling, that intuition. And I made a commitment at that point. I made a pact, which was that if I knew, like in my gut, I knew what the next move was, I could feel it, and I was just intuitively, I understood what was being asked of me, and I had the resources to make it happen, I would do it. As long as spirit or God, or my guides, angels, like whatever word you want to use to describe it, as long as I was provided for to have the resources to do the thing, I would do it. And so I put more than half of everything that I had in the bank at the time towards creating this album, not believing I was a musician. At the time, the only thing I played was a handpan, and I had poetry. And my fear was that I was going to sit in the back of the studio and just watch people make music until they said, okay, Adam, we're ready for your poetry now. Little did I know that the making of the album was actually the remembering and the knowing that I was a musician. I didn't actually know how to play the instruments. I didn't actually know how to produce the music myself, but it unlocked the part of me that felt music moving through me. The part of me that once we started the process, I would hear music. I would hear it in like the squeaky cars around me as I was driving. I would hear it in someone tapping their hands on a desk. I'd feel it in my body. It unlocked my musicianship, my ear for it. The notes that I gave in, like, this album is very much, hugely the result of my artistry and my musicianship. And the process of doing that was so priceless and worth 10x what I've invested into creating this. And along the way, I knew, I could feel it. I just felt it so strongly that I didn't want this just to be a bunch of my poetry. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this to be an experience that changed people's lives. I wanted it to be something they could listen to and go, I'm a better version of myself because I took the time to listen to that. I just didn't know how to do that. But I had a concept. You see, I believe that plant medicines, and I've spoken about this openly on this podcast many times, and if you want to know more about plant medicines, I encourage you to go back and listen to some of my podcasts around the subject. But I believe that what's happening is, say you drink a cup of ayahuasca or you take some psilocybin. What's happening in that moment is you are gaining access to a bandwidth of frequency, of information that is always available to you, but you may not be attuned to that frequency as a receiver or a transmitter at all times. Similar to right now around you, there's radio waves and Wi-Fi waves and different things, but you're not hearing the radio stations. And when you have a radio, based on what it's attuned to, you're only going to hear that one station. Similarly, when you drink that cup of ayahuasca, you're getting tuned to a different station, but that station's around you all the time. And so if it's just frequency, if it's just a bandwidth of frequency, what is technology? Right now, you're listening to this podcast or you're watching it on YouTube. What's actually happening is you're receiving a bandwidth of frequency, sound frequencies, and for those of you watching on YouTube, light wave frequencies. And so I realized, why not put the frequencies of consciousness and information available to us at all times, floating around us right now, into something that's broadcast through technology? And how do we do that? That was the question. How can we put these plant medicine consciousness frequencies into an album and do it in a way that does, I'm not talking about just like sound bowls and things. I'm not talking about just that. I'm talking about like the consciousness, information. I'm talking about an experience. How do we bring the ceremony into art? And so I knew that I wanted to explore that. I knew that I wanted that to be like the goal, to be a voice for the medicines, especially since ayahuasca told me to make it. And so I began a journey of becoming as clear a vessel as I possibly could for these 5 different medicines to speak through me onto this album in whatever way. Ayahuasca as the starting point. Then I went down and I did a 2-week iboga initiation in Mexico, where I said, I want to know how to make this a journey. So it's not just a bunch of songs. How do I make this an experience for people? And for those of you who are not familiar with iboga is a shrub from Africa, Gabon, Africa, and the root of it is a hyper potent, crazy molecule that it affects, there's so many different things that it can do. By the way, there's a ton of evidence that it can be very beneficial for the treatment of Parkinson's and so many other things, but it is a Schedule 1 in the United States. And so I went down to Mexico and worked with it. And it's one of those, like, you're in bed for 36 hours. It is hardcore. But I went down there and I just knew there was something for me there. And I asked specifically, how do you want to speak on this album? How do I put your frequency into it? And I had changed my diet and I was adjusting what I was doing each and every day in order to be the greatest match for this particular medicine to speak through me. And so it did. Literally, as I'm about to lose consciousness practically, it gives me, boom, here's the message. This is the story. And I scribble in big block letters into my journal right before passing out. And I come back with the story, ready to make that part of the experience. And I utilized cannabis, Santa Maria, to get into the body, to let my body inform the music. And I fleshed out, there's a lot of father energy in the album. There's a lot of divine masculine energy. And so I went to father energy medicine. I went to peyote to help me flesh out how to speak on the album. And the interlude, so the album itself is these 6 tracks of poetry made to original music composition, literally guitar, bass, piano, all done in studio. And in between each of those are these 1.5 to 2 minute little interludes, creating this cohesive story that combines personal development concepts like scarcity and abundance and emotional intelligence and manifestations and self-love, like all of those things, into a cohesive storyline given to me by iboga, fleshed out by peyote, the music Santa Maria, and then psilocybin. Psilocybin used as a frequency during which the delivery of the interludes could happen. So, legitimately, this is a medicine album. This is media medicine. I've traveled the world now, and I've held listening ceremonies of this. And the way that I hold the listening ceremonies is I lead a cacao ceremony. For those who don't know, cacao, so many people are familiar with it in chocolate form, but cacao has been used in ceremonies because it's unique in that it's just such a heart opener. There's actually chemicals in it. It's like one of 2 plants that has this very specific chemical that opens up and releases chemicals in your body that open up your heart, bring bliss into your experience. And I've been leading these listenings where I have the cacao ceremony, get people open up their hearts and be more receptive, set intention, and play this thought experiment. Because what do you have to lose by playing this game of, if I did indeed effectively capture the frequencies of consciousness of 5 different plant medicines into an album experience, What would be possible for you if you went into it like it was a ceremony? What would be possible for you if you set an intention, just like you were going to go in and do an evening with iboga or ayahuasca? What would be possible? And what do you have to lose by trying it out? And I have seen some of the most profound, I have had people have Kundalini awakenings. I've had people who needed, afterwards, they were like, whoa, I need help grounding down because the power was such a powerful experience. I've had people have communication with deceased relatives. And I've had people fall asleep. I've had people walk out because they felt like it was too intense, because it is a ceremony. It's not just unicorns and butterflies and everything's all wonderful and lovely. It is a full ceremony, a dive into the bliss, a dive into the shadow, an exploration of different emotions. And it lands in love, because love is the truth, the deepest truth of you and me and this reality. So it will land there. But it has been profound to see the response. And I believe so wholeheartedly that this is a medicine journey. It is unlike anything you will have ever heard before. I know, because out of the few hundred people who have heard it, everyone says that. I've never experienced anything like it. And for me, this journey has been medicine, because it unlocked the musician in me. It unlocked more of my artistry and what I thought was possible for myself. And I started to go on tour when I toured Canada with my spoken word poetry show. And I said, okay, let me pre-sell this. This was over a year ago. I was pre-selling it in order to release it. And something just didn't feel right. And I pulled it and I refunded everyone their money. And I said, I am really sorry, but I'm not selling this. I'm not releasing this now. And I have waited for over a year, since I thought it would be out into the world, to wait until it felt like the right time. And some of that's external circumstances, but most of that is my internal circumstances. The part of me that didn't feel ready yet and didn't even know that. The part of me that has gotten to see people actually experience this, to see what's possible for it, and so to believe even more deeply in its power. That has been my medicine. And then to go on this journey, because every time I've done a listening, because it's so new, right? Because I don't have anything to compare it to, that's both, there's some pros and cons to that in a way. The pros of that is it's innovative. Like, that's what it means to be innovative. There's nothing really like it. The con to that, the scary part of that, is there's nothing like it. I don't have a blueprint to follow. I don't know how you're going to receive it. It could be something that blows people's minds, and people are like, I haven't heard anything like this. And it goes on to like win a Grammy. And it could be something that is so obscure that a few hundred people listen to it, and that's it. Who knows? And it's been a journey of being able to pour my heart and soul into it, to go into these medicines. When I say I went into these, like iboga, that wasn't easy. It was incredibly difficult. I faced off with some hardcore shadow. And yet, so pouring myself into this thing, and then now needing to be at a space where it's coming out into the world, and I get to say, I release my need for it to do anything that I thought it was going to do. I get to say, I've done my part. I have done the best that I possibly can to create something that I'm incredibly proud of and I truly believe will help people. But beyond that, it's out of my control. I've done my best to honor it by not selling it before it felt ready, by promoting it as best I can, by asking all of you to support it, by pre-saving the single on Spotify, by following the Spotify artist profile, by sharing the information and the single, and sharing about the album and purchasing the album. and facing off with the part of myself that feels any sort of entitlement, like I'm owed anything. This podcast I've been putting out for 3+ years. I haven't monetized it, right? There's no ads running on this. And the part of me that goes, for someone who's listened to so many of my podcasts, of course they would want to pay $10 or $15 for an album. Like, this is a free podcast. Why wouldn't they want to support that? Or people who watch all my Facebook Lives and all the things, like, why wouldn't they? But is that true? Or is that just the little boy in me that wants to be liked, that wants to feel loved and supported? This has been my journey to be able to create with non-attachment. The last podcast I put out was just about this. Releasing the attachment to the result, the need for it to do something, while still holding the vision that it can. And something to tie this into you and what you're creating out in the world. I believe that your creative energy is the unique expression of your soul. It's like your soul's fingerprint. It is unique to you, and because you're alive and you are here on this planet, you are needed. Your soul's fingerprint, your unique essence is needed. If everyone on this planet was expressing their purest essence, we would be in that Garden of Eden. Everyone would be in their highest, and this would all work itself out. I believe that. That's the perfection of nature, when we're all actually living in alignment with our nature. And creativity is art. Art is the expression of your creativity into tangible form, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be an album or a film or a painting. Talked about this a lot. It could be an app that you design. It could be the way that you clean houses if you love to clean houses. It could be so many things, but your unique creative expression expressed into tangible form. And I believe that art is the permission slip for people to feel. Human beings receive art at an emotional level. You walk into a movie theater to receive a movie that's going to make you feel something. You put on your favorite music because of how it makes you feel. And we live in a society where so many people are trying to numb themselves and are scared to feel. And in order to heal, we get to feel. That's how the healing happens. And so your expression of your creativity, your art, is helping this planet heal. And it's the most effective way to break through to someone who has put up walls around feeling. And so this is my expression. The Art of Choosing Love for the last year, and now this album. Vulnerable. When you listen to it, you'll understand how that's a wave of emotion. How deeply personal this album is to me. How much of my heart I've put into this and shared in this storyline, in these songs, and this poetry. And when we express ourselves at that deep of a level, it creates connection. And through connection, this planet feels love. And that love heals. So you get to express yourself through your creative energy, however that is, knowing that what you create from that space is going to help this planet heal and feel more connected and feel more loving. You are worth that. This planet is worth that. People are ready for that. And if what that means is having the courage to let yourself be seen, then I encourage you to do everything that you can to build that courage. It's in you. It's there. This podcast can be the thing that inspires you to take that action if you choose for it to be. If you get the album and listen to it, maybe that's the intention that you set. The intention to let it inspire you creatively, let it motivate you to share your unique voice in your creative expression. This world is ready for your voice. It's wanting it. And as I've shared with you on this podcast, I went on a journey to arrive at the place where I feel ready to share my voice in this way with the world, with my album Permission. Little did I know that permission was being granted to myself, really. And continuing to lean in and understand that if it is medicine, how do I treat it that way? What ways can I continue to support it being held and viewed that way? It starts with how I talk about it. It also continues with making it available in certain ways to maximize that. Like I created these ceremony boxes. When I talk about ceremony, a lot of people don't even know what that means. Some of you listening to this may not even understand what that means or have some idea of it, but I'm just talking about when you combine intention with action. My meals are ceremonies because I set an intention for each meal. When I make love, I set an intention. I create ceremony out of it. When I go to the gym, I create ceremony out of that experience by setting the intention to love my body, to get stronger, to get more flexible. Like my life is ceremony because I put intention into everything that I do as often as I can. And I have a lot of things that support me in that. Things like even just like the stuff that I wear, there's intention in all of these. This is for opening my voice. This is for the healing around my root chakra. This is for it was a gift to me and for opening up my third eye, feeling more connected. Lapis, and it's just like royal, to feel like a king. There's intention in even everything. And so I created ceremony boxes that inside literally have custom candles and matches for you to light the match, pour your intention into the fire, let it burn away anything that's not serving you. A custom journal and pen so that you can write out your thoughts. So you can journal about your experience. So you can carry that with you moving forward. Partnered with Fly Cacao that produces super high quality ceremonial grade cacao sourced from Peru so that you can actually have cacao for yourself or so that you can lead a cacao ceremony for a listening of the album for others. An essential oil blend that has been blended specifically for this album. Everything you need to create the experience as ceremony. And whether you get it or not, I know that I've done everything I can to honor it as much as possible as medicine, and then I get to release the attachment to the results. So you get to do the same thing. Whatever it is that you create, it's not just about creating it, it's following through and holding it in whatever vision you have for it all the way until the end. You are the messenger. You're the one holding that frequency of what that thing is that you just created. That's you. And you get to do the best you can. That's all I can do. And sometimes it's hard. But it's worth it. I've found that every time I've leaned into my edges and I've created something, no matter how it's done success-wise, I'm always grateful by the end. I can see the growth that I've had, that no matter how many albums sell or whatever, that growth stays with me. And it will with you too. So I encourage you, please give yourself permission. Go on the journey, this medicine media journey. Get your copy of the Permission album. Get your ceremony box if you want to take it to the next level. Share it with your friends and family. Become a facilitator using this as the medicine. And then create. Let it inspire your own art so that you can create connection on this planet and help us spread love all across the globe. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this tribe. I love you so much, deep divers, truly. Everyone watching this on the YouTube, much love. I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved.